In this episode of the Christian Philosopher, we're going to talk about the credibility of the Christian faith when it comes to prophecies. What's up, everyone? Scott Sullivan here from the Aquinas School of Theology and Philosophy. Today we are talking about the credibility of the Christian faith when it comes to prophecies. This is a topic that I think is not talked about enough in our day. So in this video, we're going to talk about, first of all, prophecy as a motive of credibility. Then we're going to talk about the nature of prophecy, the three conditions of prophecy, why prophecy is possible, and how we can tell the difference between true and false prophecy. All right, so let's take the first topic, prophecy as a motive of credibility. I said in my last video that God wanted our faith to be reasonable. He wanted us to make an act of faith that is prudent. We also saw that Christ himself advocated an evidence-based faith. This is a good thing, right? Prudence would demand that we don't just thoughtlessly, willy-nilly adopt any old religious belief. And what makes religious belief credible is the same thing as what makes anything else credible. That is to say, evidence. Evidence is what provides the grounds for certainty. Evidence is what removes doubt. So to make a religious belief credible, you need evidence for that belief. And the best evidence that God could give us is to show that he's doing something, to show that he's sending us a message and acting, is to do something that only God can do. That is to say, things like miracles and prophecy. So to better understand what these motives of credibility are, right, we have to understand what are miracles and what is prophecy. So in this video, we're taking up the nature of prophecy. So let's talk about the nature of prophecy. If you wanted to define prophecy properly, I think you would say something like this. Prophecy is the certain foretelling of a future contingent event which cannot be foreseen by any natural cause. Let me say it again. We always start all good reasoning and all good arguments with proper definitions. So, prophecy is defined as the certain foretelling of a future contingent event which cannot be foreseen by any natural cause. All right, so let's break this definition down. Prophecy involves a foretelling. You're saying what's going to happen in the future. It involves a foretelling of a future contingent event. A contingent event is one that might happen or it might not happen. So it doesn't have to happen, say, given the laws of nature, right? A contingent event might happen or it might not happen, and prophecy says which way that's going to go. Prophecy also involves something that cannot be foreseen by any natural cause. So it can't be things like predicting the weather or maybe seeing some civil unrest in a country and predicting that a political revolution is going to happen. No, it's none of those things. All right, so prophecy involves a foretelling of a future contingent event that cannot be foreseen by any natural cause. All right, so let's talk about three conditions required for true prophecy. These are criteria that help us recognize that a prophecy has really happened, that it has really come from God. So they're designed to take out any sort of human guessing or human prediction as a possible explanation. The first criterion is that the prophecy be certain and not a mere guess. It can't be like, well, hey, I think this might happen. No, it has to be something certain. This is going to happen. The second criterion is kind of what we said in the definition, that the prophecy be about a future contingent event. It can't be something that has to happen according to the laws of physics, right? So an example would be when Jesus Christ himself predicted the fall of Jerusalem to the Romans in 70 AD. He predicted this about 40 years in advance. So this would be an example of a future contingent event. It didn't have to happen. It was based upon the free decisions of the people involved. And the third criterion is that the prophecy cannot be foreseen by any natural cause. So it needs to be a certain degree of improbability associated with this. It can't be like saying, hey, I predict that you're going to eat lunch tomorrow at noon. You know what I mean? That's just not improbable enough. So it has to be something that cannot be foreseen by any natural cause. So these criteria are designed to help us recognize true prophecy, not human guessing, not something that had to happen. No, only God alone can be the author of true prophecy, and we can recognize that by using these criteria. All right, so let's talk about why prophecy is possible. So when we ask this question, hey, is prophecy possible? all we need to know is can God do it, and can we understand it, right? If God can do it and we can understand it, then prophecy is possible. So as far as the first thing, can God do it? Of course. God is omniscient. God knows all things. He knows past, present, and future, and he can tell us these things that he knows. So it's certainly possible on the part of God, and it's possible on the part of us. We can understand God's message if he tells us something. If he says, the Messiah is going to come and he's going to do A, B, and C, obviously we can understand that. So prophecy is possible. It's possible on the part of God. It's possible on the part of man. And really, most cultures have recognized this. Almost every religious culture in the world has some sort of notion of prophecy or divine foreknowledge. So this is not some kind of weird or contradictory thing. It's a very common human belief. There's no grounds for thinking that prophecy is impossible. All right, so now we know that prophecy is possible. How do we know that prophecy has ever happened? How do we know? How can we recognize? How can we tell the difference between, say, true and false prophecy, right? Because there are a lot of morons out there, charlatans who claim to speak for God, and they're predicting this and predicting that. How do we know the difference between true and false prophecy? And the answer is very simple, because what has been prophesied comes to pass. What has been predicted actually ends up happening. And this is, after all, the biblical standard. It says in the book of Deuteronomy, when a prophet speaks the name of the Lord, if the word does not come to pass or come true, that is a word that the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You need not be afraid of him. All right, and finally here, there are actually two kinds of prophecies in Christianity. First of all, there are the prophecies that are made about Christ. These are the messianic prophecies that we see in the Old Testament. And then there are the prophecies made by Christ. So we've got the prophecies about Christ, those messianic prophecies written before Christ came. And then we have the prophecies that Christ himself made. For example, the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, or the prediction that his gospel would be spread all over the world. As it turns out, both kinds of prophecies, both the prophecies made about Christ and the predictions made by Christ, both kinds support the rationality of Christian belief. And you can check this out. There are a lot of things online. There are books. I have a whole section on the messianic prophecies in my Christ 101 program. You can check out in my Aquinas School of Theology and Philosophy, and we'll also talk about it here in later videos. Hey guys, just real quickly here, if you like these videos and you want to learn more about some of the stuff that I teach, you can visit my website, scottmsullivan.com. I have what I call the Aquinas School of Theology and Philosophy. We have courses in logic, philosophy, theology, a whole bunch of stuff. You can check it out. We have a free trial. It's available on my website. Again, check it out, scottmsullivan.com.